Welcome back to Volume 2 of River Stories with Captain Harold DeMarrero. Today we're listening to little John Hartford, and you want to talk about John Hartford a little bit, so Captain, take it away.
Well, I met John when he came on board the Delta Queen, and John was a pretty good steersman. And
Steersman, not captain?
No, a steersman. He could steer the Delta Queen fairly well. So he had an operator's license, and he was calling himself a pilot. I said, well, John, you can't be a pilot unless you have a pilot license. Now, a pilot license means that you have to go down to the Coast Guard and draw a map out of your memory of whatever river you want to be a pilot over. And John had never done this. So I talked him into going down, and he ended up being an actual first-class pilot on the, I think it was the Illinois River. But he used to come on board the Delta Queen when I was captain and commodore of the Delta Queen, and John would perform on board, and we got to be pretty good friends.
He was talking about him being a pilot on the Illinois River. How's that compared to the Mississippi River and the Ohio River?
Well, it's totally different. Being pilot over a river means you have to know that river. You can be a pilot on the Illinois and not be a pilot on the Mississippi. What you have to do is you have to remember the river that you're running. It's like all people are pilots in some degree or another. If you know your way home from the grocery store, you're a pilot over that route. You know where to turn, you know where the roads are, you know where the stop signs are, you know where the signals are. It's the same thing on the river. If you know a stretch of the river, that means you know where the sandbars are, you know where the buoys are, you know where the lights are.
Hey, Captain, that brings up something kind of interesting to me, because every once in a while I clip a curb on the way home. You ever clip a curb out there in the river?
Oh, yeah, I have. Actually, when the river gets down, when the river levels drop, the river gets smaller, like especially on the Mississippi, because it gets down in between the sandbar and the bank, and sometimes it's very narrow. And sometimes when you're trying to go around that corner on the Mississippi, you might clip the corner of a sandbar, and when you do, you usually break your barges up. That's happened to me a couple of times.
So last time we left off about you getting married. You want to talk more about your career after the marriage?
Which time are you talking about?
Well,
the first time I was married 3 times.
Oh, well.
I've been married the last time for 30 years.
Save your fine wife of present misery and skip the first 2 if you could.
Oh, when I met my last wife? Well, I was pilot on the Mississippi. I was doing what they call trip pilot work, where I would just go to work for a company and work 60, 70 days, got paid for every day, and I'd come home and got a check for the whole amount. So I had been living with my mom and dad down on their farm in Byhalia, Mississippi, which is about 30 miles south of Memphis. So my son from my first marriage come and told me that I should move. I should move up to Memphis. So we got in the car, and he drove around and found me a place to move. So I moved in there. Then I went off on the river for 60, 70 days. And one of the agreements I had with my son was I would let him live in my apartment while I was gone. So when I got back, I got my car and drove up to my apartment and looked out in the yard, and there was my wife and 2 other ladies. And I said, man, that's the most beautiful woman I ever saw in my life. So anyway, I went upstairs, got in my apartment, unpacked my bag, and my apartment was right on the edge of the swimming pool. So I looked out on my balcony and I saw these three girls out in the swimming pool. So I made myself a nice scotch on the rocks and put on my bathing suit. At the time, I wasn't so heavy. I went downstairs by the swimming pool and I saw my wife and I tried to fix her up with my nephew. And she said, "I don't date kids." He was 26. And I said, "Well, how old a guy do you date?" She said, "Well, the guy I'm dating right now is 38. I said, "Well, I'm only 42, so that means you can date me too." So I asked her out on a date, and I kept dating her until she agreed to marry me. And then we got married, and we've been happily married for 30 years.
So, I know music's been an important part of your life. You want to talk about how music's affected you in your life?
Music? Oh yeah, music has affected me a lot because back in the, when I was like 41, 42 years old, I was vice president of this barge company in Greenville, Mississippi. And I used to hang around these musicians. That town was so boring. I was single at the time too. And it was so boring that I hung around this rock and roll group. And the next thing you know, I was going off, following them around and trying to manage them. Bought a bunch of equipment and decided that I would quit my job as vice president of this major barge company. So I quit my job, hired these guys, and we went on the road as a band. I've always played keyboards.
Do you have to feed everybody and pay for the hotel rooms?
Oh yeah, I paid for everything. Well, I got a lot of money when I sold my house, and I sold all my furniture, so I converted.
What's good for the soul ain't always good for the pocketbook.
I know it wasn't. But I had a lot of fun. You know, I thought, that's something I always wanted to do is play music. And I did. I had my chance. I still got recordings of it, that when I was playing with my band. We weren't very good. We played ramadas and Holiday Inns. But the unfortunate thing was, I started my band the year that disco started. And the next thing I knew is we had a year's worth of bookings. They all got canceled because all these places were putting in disco. So since then, all I've done is I like to play. I've got a nice keyboard that's got percussion and all that stuff, a Yamaha keyboard, and I play with it. I like to play jazz. I'm a jazz fan.
Okay, this will wrap it up for Volume 2 of River Stories with Captain Harold DeMarrero. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with ex-captain of the Delta Queen and Mississippi Queen on Volume 3, so stay tuned and watch us again soon.